Hey folks, Steve the Math Buddha here, and today I'm going to be revealing to you the top 10 math topics that I found on the SATs. And for each one of those topics, I'm going to be presenting to you a list of all the questions that I found on that topic. And you will be able to access those questions as well because I have in the description below a link to the site where I found all those SATs. Now, as we discussed last week, in preparation for my upcoming SAT prep series, I went through 11 past SAT exams and sorted all the math questions into categories so that I could bring to you my top 20. Last week, I showed you 11 through 20. Today, I'm going to be showing you the top 10. The top 10 covers over 43% of the math material on the SATs, and I'm planning to teach each one of those topics in a simple, easy-to-follow video where I will show you all the different ways that questions are being asked on that topic. Now, if you didn't see last week's video, I strongly suggest that you check it out before you watch this one. Also, if you're tuning in just to see the results of last week's error challenge, you will find that in the final segment of this video. But please stay and check out my top 10. And if you find the information useful, please share with others that you think would find the information useful. And please don't forget to like and subscribe and to turn on those notifications so that you will know when these SAT videos are coming out. And with that, let's move on to topic number 10. Number 10, exponential functions. Another 23 questions or 2.09 questions per exam. In my exponential functions video, I'm going to show you how to recognize an exponential function from a set of words and how to identify the parameters and also explain the parameters. We will look at increasing functions, decreasing functions, radioactive decay problems, interest problems, and also change of unit problems. A change of units question is a question where maybe you're given an equation where your variable is expressed in hours, and you have to convert it into an equation where your variable is expressed in minutes. I'm going to show you all of that in my exponential functions video. It's an extensive topic, but I think I can get it all into one video. If it becomes too much, I might have to split it into two. In the number 9 spot, we're solving for a function of x or a function of xy. 23 questions on this subject or 2.09 questions per exam. For the questions on this list, instead of being asked to solve for x, we're being asked to solve for a function of x. Now, the first instinct for many of you might be to solve for x and then find f of x, but most of the time it's much easier to solve for f of x directly. There's also a couple of questions where we have to solve for a function of xy, where we're given a pair of simultaneous equations, for example, and we're asked to solve for 2x plus y, which happens to be the sum of the two equations or the difference of the two equations. There's also a couple of questions on this list where we ultimately have to solve for x, but the easiest way to do it is solve for a function of x first. Consider this example. The solution to this equation is a very simple x plus 3 equals 0 or x minus 7 equals 1. We solve for that first and then we back into a solution for x. At number 8, we are adding, multiplying, and dividing polynomials. 24 SAT questions or 2.18 questions per exam. For the questions on this list, you're going to be given a pair of polynomials in one variable or two, and you're going to have to add them together or multiply them together. Now, the division problems are simple reductions. You don't have to apply any division algorithms. Also, there's a couple of questions on this list where the exponents are fractional, or we have radicals, which are equivalent to fractional exponents. Those are not technically polynomials because polynomials always have integer exponents, but the rules for multiplying them together are the same, which is why they're on this list. Number 7 is the dreaded scatterplot category, with 24 questions or 2.18 questions per exam. Scatterplot questions fall into two basic categories. Either you have to identify a point or a set of points. Like, for example, they might ask you to just count the number of data points below the line of best fit. The other type of question, they'll ask you to find the line of best fit that fits the points on the scatterplot. This is a particularly good topic to learn if you're looking to get the best bang for your buck, because there are a lot of questions and they're all pretty much the same. Next up, number 6, probability. I have identified 25 past SAT questions on this topic, or 2.27 questions per exam. This is another really good bang for your buck category, because there are a lot of probability questions and they're all very simple. Probability questions on this list are all simple counting questions. Successful outcomes divided by total outcomes. A bunch of the questions are conditional probability questions, which means that you're reducing your sample space, but you're still counting outcomes within that reduced sample space. There's also a couple of questions where instead of asking for a probability, they're asking for a fraction. They could, for example, instead of asking you, what is the probability that a randomly selected point on this scatter plot is below the line of best fit? They might ask instead, what fraction of points from this scatter plot are below the line of best fit? When you ask it the second way, it is not a probability question. But the methodology for calculating it is the same. It's still successful outcomes over total outcomes, which is why I'm including those questions on this list. Now, folks, if you find any value at all in these lists that I've put together, I know that I would have back when I was in high school if someone had done that work for me and went through all the exams and sorted through all those questions so that I could really focus on one topic at a time. That's the way I like to study. I really like to focus on one topic and get that topic down before I moved on to the next. So if any of you are like me and you find value in these question lists, please share on social media, and please click that like button, and please turn on those notifications so that you know when these SAT videos are coming out. And please, please don't forget to subscribe. Now, I wanted to point out that I'm not just a math lover, I'm also a cat lover. You might have seen my little Sally in the introduction of last week's video, the mysterious disappearing cat. And you know what? Here's a picture of her on the cover of a journal that I have for sale on Amazon KDP. Now, there's not much to it. It's not a literary masterpiece. It's just an empty journal. But I think the format is kind of nice, with places to record your daily thoughts and aspirations and dreams, and also a cat care checklist. I also love this picture of her on the cover. I love the way the flash reflects off her eyes. So if there's any cat lovers out there that keep a journal, or maybe you know someone who's a cat lover that keeps a journal, this might make a really nice gift. There's a link to my Amazon page in the description below. And now let's check out our top 5. Next up, number 5, linear word problems of the form y equals mx plus b. 25 questions or 2.27 questions per exam. Now, y equals mx plus b questions are a little different than your ax plus by equals c questions. In your y equals mx plus b questions, you have to identify from your word problem a single rate and a starting point. And you use that to build your equation, or you might have to explain one of the parameters in a given equation. There's also questions on this list where you're going to have to solve, but y equals mx plus b questions are a lot easier to solve than ax plus by equals c questions because there's only one variable. Either they give you x and you have to calculate y, or they give you y and you have to solve for x. At number 4, we have percentages. 30 questions I identified on this topic, or 2.73 questions per exam. In my percentages video, I'm going to show you the difference between increasing by a percentage or increasing to a percentage, and also decreasing by a percentage or decreasing to a percentage, and also how to translate from one to the other. I'm also going to show you when to divide by a percentage and when to multiply by a percentage. We will cover all of that in my percentages video. At number 3, we have x and y intercept questions. 32 questions I found, or 2.91 questions per exam. Now, a lot of your x and y intercept questions, you just got to plug it right off the graph. You just have to see the y-intercept on the y-axis or see the x-intercept on the x-axis. Other times, they might just ask you, what is f of 0? That's the same thing as asking you, what is the y-intercept? For that case, you might have to do some kind of a calculation. There's also a couple of questions on this list where you're given a factored polynomial in x and asked, when is f of x 0? We're going to cover all of that in my x and y intercepts video. Sitting in the number 2 position, we have conversions, ratio, and rates. 32 questions or 2.91 questions per exam. Conversions, ratios, and rates. How is it that these 3 things go together? Well, the reason why is because for every question on this list, we're going to be converting from one unit to another. If we're told, for example, that in a particular school, the ratio of students to teachers is 10 to 1, well, that gives us a means of converting from number of students to number of teachers. In a similar way, if we're told that someone is driving 90 miles per hour, then for that particular trip, 90 miles per hour functions as a conversion rate from miles to hours. And finally, in the top spot at number 1, we have slope or how many solutions questions. 38 questions or 3.45 questions per exam. Slope and how many solutions. Now, why do these two topics go together? Well, the reason why is because finding the number of solutions to a pair of linear equations is all about slope. If the slopes are different, then there's going to be a unique solution. If the slopes are the same, then you're either going to have 0 solutions or infinitely many solutions. And in my slope, how many solutions video, I'm going to show you exactly how to distinguish between all 3 cases. And I'm going to show you for the y equals mx plus b case and also for the ax plus by equals c case. So that's my top 10. Now, as I pointed out in last week's video, I'm not sure how much work I'm going to be putting into this series. It really depends on what you all want to see. If there's a demand for it, I could do it 21 through 30. That would bring us another 13%. And now we're closing in on 90% of the material covered in 30 simple, easy to follow videos. I'm actually considering sitting for a few exams next year so I can stay in touch with the exam when they move to the online system. My understanding is that the test is going to change depending on the skill level that you show on the earlier questions, which means that I will have to sit for several exams and take them under different skill levels to see what it's all about so that I can report back to you. Again, how much work I'm willing to do depends on the demand. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to see more SAT prep? Do you want to see a 21 through 30? I can do whatever you all want to see. And with that, let's take a look at last week's error challenge. Last week, I left you with the following error challenge. You might have noticed that there was a point in this video where the text on the whiteboard behind me suddenly changed, and then a few minutes later, it reverted back to its original form. So where did this happen? Where did this text change up? Well, let's take a look at 355. In particular, notice that upward slash and see how it points to the H. And now let's move ahead to 402. And what do you know? The slash is now pointing to the A instead of the H. And now let's move ahead a few more seconds to 410. And we're back with the slash pointing to the H. So that was last week's challenge. For this week's challenge, guess what? I did it again. There is a point in this video where the text changes. Let me know if you see it. And I will reveal to you the results in next week's video. And that's all I have for you folks. This is the Math Buddha signing off once again. Have a great night and have a truly pleasant tomorrow.